Hello, everyone, and welcome to the alumni special of the Windsor Wednesday Show with Suzie Sawicki. Thank you for taking time to join us on today's show and for being part of the #YouandProud community. We have three incredibly special alumni guests on today's show. So without further ado, let's meet our panelists. Our first guest is Amanda Iarusso, a 2017 Windsor JD grad. Amanda is the Executive Director of Policy and Legal Affairs to the Attorney General of Ontario and is a recipient of the 2021 Alumni Odessey Award. Welcome, Amanda. Our second guest is Katharen Bortolin, a 2016 Windsor MBA grad. Katharen is the Director of Community Engagement and Advancement with the Hospice of Windsor in Essex County. Katharen is also a recipient of the 2021 Alumni Odessey Award and is a member of the Reunions and Special Events Committee with the Alumni Association. Welcome, Katharen. And finally, our third guest is Dwania Peele, a BSc 2011 grad. Dwania is an author, entrepreneur, chemist, public speaker, and breast cancer conqueror. Dwania is the recipient of the 2021 Alumni Ambassador Award and founded her own company, Canadian Small Business Women. Welcome, guests, and thank you so much for joining us on today's alumni special. I'm going to start our Q&A round with Amanda. So, Amanda, you received your Canadian JD with honors from the University of Windsor in 2017, as well as an American JD with honors from the University of Detroit Mercy that same year. Can you tell us some highlights of your time during that program, and what were some of the opportunities that degree brought you?
Thanks, Suzie. It's so great to be reconnecting with the University of Windsor community from my condo here in Toronto, and thanks for having me on the show. So as you mentioned, I did the dual JD program that Windsor offers with Detroit Mercy, and I think what's so unique about that program and specifically our Faculty of Law is really the sense of community and collegiality that it offers. In the dual program, I was essentially with the same 70 to 75 students, 5 days a week in 3 years, studying in two cities, Windsor and Detroit. And that's a really unique experience compared with other programs and other schools. You get to know everyone's name, you know a little bit about each person. And really what the effect of that is forming many long-lasting friendships, relationships, and colleagues that I can rely on just by picking up the phone, getting some advice or insight for them or talking shop. And it's a really exciting network of people to have. And Windsor Law is still a relatively new faculty, and I think everyone's really proud to study where we did. And actually a group of us formed at my law firm. I recently left my role at the Attorney General's office and rejoined my law firm in Toronto called McCarthy Tatro. And we actually have a group of alum that get together socially about 4 times a year. And it's a really interesting cross-generational intersection of people that went to Windsor Law 30 years ago and some of us within the past 5 years. And with respect to the degree itself, it's always advantageous knowing more. And the dual program at Windsor and Detroit gives you literacy in law in 2 different jurisdictions. You're being taught by faculty that come from 2 different legal systems that have different perspectives on the law and our political and legislative and judicial systems. And so that's really neat. But as I said, it's really the sense of community and collegiality that I took away from Windsor and something I'm really proud that our school embraces.
That's really interesting. And overall, what made you want to go to Windsor out of any other law school? Was it the cross-border opportunities, or was it maybe something else?
Well, I'm actually a Windsor native. I'm from LaSalle, Ontario. So the University of Windsor was right down the road, and I had lived abroad and worked on Parliament Hill under the Prime Minister Harper administration for some time, and then lived out of the country in Italy. And when I was accepted into Windsor Law, again, compared to other schools, it wasn't just an opportunity to be back home with my family and friends, but I knew that Windsor did place a huge emphasis on on collegiality and really investing in their students and getting them opportunities, not just in Windsor, but in other cities. And here we are. I'm really happy that I made the choice I did at the time.
Absolutely. And U Windsor is lucky to have you.
Thanks.
And speaking of another lucky U Windsor student that our university is, of course, extremely proud of is Katharen. And Katharen, as a graduate of U Windsor, completing your undergraduate in English language and literature and a master's in business administration, how's your education played a role in your current position as the Director of Community Engagement and Advancement with the Hospice of Windsor and Essex County?
So when I tell people that I have an undergraduate in English and then I went over to the School of Business, sometimes I get some funny looks. It was kind of a beautiful learning opportunity because even the teaching and learning styles of the two different faculties, being in different buildings, being across campus. I mean, I love the Odette School of Business, but Dylan will always have a soft spot in my heart because I spent so much time in there. And it was interesting from the English language and literature side. I was part of a faculty that didn't necessarily have one building or one home. So I got to experience lots of different buildings and lots of different teaching styles. And that really created a great foundation of analytical skills. Some people still call them soft skills, but I think they're honestly some of the most important things I learned. I love, literature and that department because you can read and experience things through, analysis and lectures without actually having to personally experience them, but still kind of get that takeaway. So it provided so many experiences that I just was able to take in through the different topics that we covered and lectures that I attended. So it was a really awesome foundation. From there, jumping over to the Odette School of Business, obviously, I absolutely understand, Amanda's commentary about working and being with the same people for an extended period of time. I spent a ton of time. I lived at Odette during the MBA, but it was fun. It became like a second home. That MBA lounge was, we napped on couches and we spent all-nighters because we also wanted to be together. So that experience was fabulous. But then over and above that, there's so many practical hands-on components that come from the Odette School of Business. And so it really allowed me to take all those skills I had learned, all the business knowledge, and then put it into practice. And I still draw on that regularly at work, having kind of both sides of that foundation, because I have a communication side and a donor relations side to my job. There's still financial components, there's still accounting pieces, but then there's also those skills in being able to communicate. So as much as it's kind of an odd combination, I honestly think it was the perfect combination to end up where I am. And I really think the way that the university programs were delivered between both of those faculties had a really big part of that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And a similar question to Amanda before, what was that transition like for you, and what made you want to pursue that master's in business administration at U Windsor in the first place?
So the University of Windsor MBA program is known for having a lot of hands-on learning and known for having a small cohort and known for things that I personally really valued and things that I wanted to be a part of. I know this is said often about the university that you're not just a number. It's true. It's not just a saying. It's definitely something I felt. Similar to Amanda, I have colleagues that I call all the time. They're in lots of different areas, and we work together because we're in different areas, but we still draw on each other. So knowing that the experiential learning, now called the APEX program at Odette and in the MBA program, was something that they offered, that really hands-on learning opportunity. I was kind of fortunate. I basically went, right from my undergrad into the master's program. So I didn't have a ton of full-time work experience. And that was really supplemented by that APEX program and really gave opportunities for me to kind of learn on the fly, but then also, have the hands-on component. So although I'm also from Windsor and I was, happy to stay home with friends and family, the program was actually the perfect fit for me and had a lot of the same values and focus that I wanted to have, especially as I look towards my career.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's so cool to see how you tied both of those passions now into your own career. And speaking of those kinds of passions, I want to move now towards Dwania. Dwania, your Canadian small businesswoman, began serving as a platform for aspiring and current small businesswomen in Canada. What has it been like creating your own business and now using your knowledge to help other women reach their own level of success?
Wow, it's been interesting to say the least, because I knew nothing about business. I did not go to school for business. So I had to learn along the way. However, I did take a lot of the skills I learned at University of Windsor. Like, I am very analytical. My degree is in chemistry. I am super analytical. And I do like things templated. I'm a wash, rinse, repeat kind of person. And I love to learn. So starting the business was a whole learning process for me. And that was the angle I took with the people in the Canadian small business women community is, you know what? I'm learning how to start a business. I know that you want to learn to start a business. Let's do it together. And that's really how it built, just one day at a time, chipping away, learning and transferring all those analytical skills into building the business itself.
Yeah, and I read a little bit about those workshops that you helped run. Can you maybe tell our guests a little bit more about those?
Sure. So we run workshops that are for the people who did not grow up in an entrepreneurial household. So, like there'll be people who their parents owned a business and they learn the ins and outs of the business so that when they grow up, they can also be business owners. But then there are people who have these great business ideas and their parents, they did 9-to-5s and they have nothing but an idea. So how do they transform that idea into reality? What are the tools they need? So we have workshops that span from creating a business plan all the way to scaling up your business, just so that those basic questions that any aspiring entrepreneur would ask, they're able to get it answered. And the type of world that we live in right now too, it's very much a gig economy, but it's also very much, especially women are growing in the entrepreneurial space. So we get a lot of those inquiries like, okay, I have a 9-to-5, I have this many hours in the day. This is what I want to do. How can I map this out? And we go through step by step and we'll identify workshops. You need to learn how to do social media. You need to know how to market, because social media marketing and regular marketing, totally different thing. All those little tidbits that they need to know in order to start that business.
Yeah, and if any of our viewers are interested in maybe signing up, what is the process behind that? Is there maybe a website or something our viewers can look for?
You can find us at Canadian Small Business Women everywhere. So you punch that in, Instagram, Facebook, we're everywhere. We try to be everywhere.
All right, that's amazing. Well, if anyone's looking for more information on that, Dwania has that info for you. And we're going to circle back to Amanda with starting our second round of Q&A. Amanda, I know you mentioned before that now you've left your position as the Executive Director of Policy and Legal Affairs to the Attorney General. But during that position, you helped spearhead and oversaw the passage of legislation and regulations that reform and modernize the justice sector in ways to many stakeholders. Can you explain the process behind passing the legislature and maybe some important bills that you supported the implementation of?
Sure. It's sort of hard to summarize it all. I think in the 2 years that I was at the Attorney General's office, I spearheaded around the reform of 35 pieces of legislation and dozens of regulations. But I think what is actually quite interesting is the public doesn't realize how broad the Attorney General's mandate is. It actually goes way beyond the justice sector. The Attorney General is responsible for things like alcohol, cannabis, iGaming, victim services, even some financial services. And so it was really exciting to be part of the team that implemented things that really have everyday use to the average person. Things like, for example, permanent alcohol delivery, that you can get a drink when you order Uber Eats. That was cool to be part of, to something more meaningful to me, like big investments and the expansion of victim services in underserviced areas in Ontario, rural Ontario, and also implementing a number of Indigenous services for Indigenous victims. But I think the biggest legacy project that I was part of was really the modernization of our justice system. And that really started when COVID came last year. During the time that I was there, I think most lawyers and people who regularly interact with the justice system would agree that we saw the most significant period of transformation in a generation that we accomplished within those 12 months, compared to sort of the entire existence of the ministry. And the best way to explain it is, what does that mean for the average Ontarian? Well, before it was really a paper-based system. It moved really slowly. It wasn't very efficient, and it's not sustainable. Surprisingly, the justice system was not on par with other services that Ontarians access every day, say like at Service Ontario. When you want to go renew your driver's license, you're able to do it online, you're able to pay online, etc., instead of having to, physically go into the Service Ontario Center. And so what that meant, some of the projects that I was part of was, for example, moving justice services online. Now you can actually file the documents in a lawsuit online and pay online. Before we were at something like 15 to 20% of the entire documents that exist, you could file online. Now we're at like 95%. And you can also now appear on Zoom and different video conferencing services, so that if you do have to appear at court, whether you're a juror, whether you're a witness or one of the parties, you don't actually have to take time necessarily off of work to go travel and get, childcare. You can video conference into the court from the comfort of your home or from work. And that also allows people, the public, to meaningfully participate in the justice system. And an example of that is sort of early on in the pandemic, there was a sentencing hearing in a criminal case that I think most people would say had a huge impact on marginalized and racialized communities. And it was a case of interest to a lot of people. The average courthouse, depending where you are in the province, probably fits 20 to 50 people in the gallery. During this sentencing hearing, there were thousands of people who logged online to watch that sentencing hearing. I don't have the number off top, but it was more than 10,000. And that's really incredible. And that's, I think, really important access to justice, in my view, not just the participants in the actual proceeding, but the public. And obviously, another part of the project was digitizing records. Again, it was paper-based. So we're saving hundreds of thousands of pieces of paper each year with this new system, and it makes total environmental sense. And I think I'll cap it off by saying, something neat and what's so awesome about the Windsor Law community, going back to what I was saying earlier about that sense of community and collegiality, was while I was at the AG's office, I attended one of the Windsor Law alum events. They have about 2 a year here in Toronto, and I always enjoy going. And I showed up a little late from work. I sat down, I looked to my left, and there I see, about a handful of members from cabinet, different ministers who are also Windsor Law alum, people like Minister Michael Tobolo, Ross Romano. And it's awesome to see that we have Windsor Law grads having that level of influence and really leading the charge in our province.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such an interesting answer. And I even, this past 2 years during COVID, I really enjoyed watching some cases on YouTube or any way that they were streamed. I just want to quickly ask, what are you looking forward to in the future of modernizing the justice sector? Are there any other implementations or things that you want to see in the future?
Yeah, something that was really important to me and the Attorney General also when we were working on these projects is, how do you make it faster and easier and more affordable for people, the average Ontarian, to actually participate in the justice system, not just the lawyers and the judges who are the everyday players. Interacting with the justice system is, a daunting task for most people. And it's usually a task that people don't really enjoy, whether it's a criminal case or a family case or, commercial case that maybe your small business is involved in. It's a difficult, costly process in many times. And moving forward, I'd just like to see services simplified, for the average Ontarian, and things like, for example, small claims court, not having to rely on necessarily lawyers or paralegals to actually deliver those services, but just make it easier to actually interact with the system on a day-to-day basis when it's needed.
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to seeing those changes in the future. And Amanda spoke a little bit about that sense of community at Windsor. Katharen, you yourself are passionately involved in your community, sitting on the board of directors of the Windsor International Film Festival, and recently being appointed to the Hotel de Grace Healthcare Board of Directors. Why is it important for you to give back to the Windsor community?
So starting as a student at the University of Windsor, I received so much from mentors, people I worked with. Because especially with that experiential learning piece, there was all these connections made, and it was quite amazing. I think sometimes as a student, you're so busy going to speaker engagements and doing the work and trying to write the exams, you kind of don't realize how much time people are actually giving you and how much they want to help you. And it's not that I didn't appreciate it. You're just, you're in the hustle and bustle, you kind of forget. So, really looking back at that experience, there are so many people that, I owe thank you cards and hugs and things that they probably don't even realize. So to take the opportunity and give back to, some of those people, but even from the community as a whole, I feel like it's a bit of a responsibility, to be honest with you, because I received so much, so many mentors, so many people. But the other thing I learned from those mentors and having those conversations is there was a very consistent message that part of the reason they were helping me is because they also wanted to make the community better. So making the community better, I don't think, you can never go wrong with that intention in your heart, to just try and help, a community that gave you so much. And I will say, completely selfishly, I work with fabulous people. I get the opportunity to meet wonderful people. So to sit on boards, I mean, yes, there are big decisions that need to be made and large implications, but I also get to work with wonderful people and help a community I believe in. So I think it's a responsibility, but it's also something I enjoy immensely.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's so important to give back to the community that gave to you. And I just want to turn to Dwania quickly. You're also proud to be from U Windsor. And I read in your bio, you have a degree in chemistry. I just want to know, for you, what steps can we take to make STEM an inclusive area for all?
For me, my experience in chemistry at U Windsor was probably a little unique because, one, I started at the university in January, which is not common. I didn't know that then in Canada to have a January start. So I also was about only 4 months into being a Canadian resident. So there is that as well. So I had to learn to try to build relationships quickly and had to get very much adjusted to the Canadian way of life. I mean, a prime example was on my first day, it was one of the biggest snowstorms ever. I don't know, but it seemed like the biggest snowstorm ever to me. I did not have a student card. I had nothing. I knew nothing. And some of the ladies who were on my floor, Laurier, love that place. They were like, "Oh, let's take you to breakfast." And I'm like, I don't even know you. Can we start with hi? Like, I don't even know what's going on. I'm new to all this, And I had to really dive in and take the second half of my courses prior to the first half. But I always thank this one person. Dr. Dutton really helped me a lot. I think I had to interview with him to even get into the university because it was a January start. And he really asked all the right questions, like, what do I want to do? I did end up working for him, and that helped me know that, hey, I love the lab environment. That's really what I want to work in, which I do. I do have a 9-to-5. I do manage a lab right now. But the one thing that I wish was more available is that kind of mentorship, because a lot of times when you're not someone who was born and raised in the city of the school, you might not have those community connections that were built outside of the school and then were able to transfer into the school. So maybe it was me just having blinders on, but I did not know where to go for a lot of things. I did not know where to go for a lot of help. So I think some kind of mentorship, partnership type program would be really beneficial, especially for students who are coming into the school from outside of the Windsor area. I think that would be very, very beneficial because it helped me a lot. Dr. Dutton, my life is owed to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with that point. And it's just so cool to hear those places on campus that you talk about that we're all so familiar with, and things like that. I just want to maybe ask, we'll go back to Katharen really quick. As you're all Alumni Award recipients, but Katharen, I just want to know, when you first received news that you were going to receive an award from the Alumni Association, how did that feel and what was your reaction like?
Absolutely honored and privileged. Then, I'll be honest, I had a moment of seriously, because I read Amanda's bio and went, oh my gosh, she deserves this way more than I do. This is like, how could I ever be honored alongside, some of these people? But I think that's what's kind of amazing about these awards. It's one thing to receive an award, and it's obviously an honor, but to look around and see who you're receiving it alongside with, like, that just makes it something completely different. Because like I said, I read the bios of the other people who I was honored to receive it with, and they're amazing people. I cannot wait to get to meet them and have conversations, because I find them so interesting. And just the work is also unique and so different. The other thing I will say is I have a number of colleagues that I look up to who have also received this award. So it was really meaningful in that way, because those are people that I, appreciate and respect, and to kind of be able to hold that alongside them was something that, I was very appreciative of.
Absolutely. And back to Amanda, now as an alumni, how do you still stay involved in the U Windsor community? And maybe also tell us a little bit about what was it like receiving that Alumni Odessey Award and how that felt for you?
Yeah, well, I was absolutely thrilled to get it. Like Katharen said, it was very pleasant, surprising news, especially with the year that I think we all have experienced. It was just great positive news, and I was very honored to receive it. And I think it was a bit of an homage also to my parents, who supported me so much during my law school career, and who also attended the University of Windsor and other faculties, and it was just awesome for the entire family. Staying in touch with the University of Windsor, I obviously try to make my way back home and contribute to the community through my local Rotary Club when I can. But beyond that, I think the best way that Windsor alum can really support current students is making the time when you get a cold call or a cold email asking for 10 minutes of your time to pick your brain. I must get that, at least once a week from a Windsor student who's either an undergrad thinking about going to law school, or a Windsor law student who's, going to be interviewing on Bay Street and wants some advice on how to make it in at law. I have no lawyers in my family. I didn't know really what the legal profession entailed before I got started, and I really relied on the wisdom and the advice and the help of my colleagues at Windsor Law at the time, and also alum. And so that's, how I think I contribute in sort of an everyday way, is just making time out of everyone's busy schedule to give that advice. And I'd encourage other alum to do the same. It really can make the difference to a student.
Absolutely. And finishing things off with Dwania, we have about 2 minutes left. You're also the recipient of an Alumni Award, the Alumni Ambassador Award. I just want to know, how did you feel winning this award with some other impressive candidates as well, and of course our 2 other alumni recipients here today?
I was ecstatic because, I know that I put in a lot of work. I know what I give, and it's always great to be recognized for the hard work that you put in, because ladies, I'm sure while others are sleeping, we're toiling, right? That's what we do. And it's also, for me, I remember getting the physical copies of all the magazines that we would get. Is it every month? I don't even remember anymore. I haven't gotten those in quite a while physically. It's all email now. And, when I flip through and I see all the accomplishments, and I'm like, you know what? It's pushing me to do even more, to strive for even better, because I need to see me in that magazine. Well, actually, I do remember saying I want to be on the magazine. I did say that more than once. So, it really pushed me. And to get that email and to see that I was being recognized for the work that I'm doing, it felt really good. It really did. But it's also a lot of pressure, because it means that you now have to make sure that you're continuing to do these things, right? Because other people are watching.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just that, you're such a role model to other people. And even though now you all three know, I've only got to know you over the last few weeks, but you're all role models to me as well. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on today's Alumni Show. And I wish I could talk for even longer because, you know, you're all so interesting and have such incredible careers now. I just want to thank our guests as well, and anyone who watched on today. As always, you can find the full-length episodes on Facebook and YouTube of the Windsor Wednesday Show. Of course, if you enjoyed today's show and are interested in being a guest, you can email myself or studentexperience@uwindsor.ca. I again want to thank our wonderful guests, and we'll see you all right here next week on the Windsor Wednesday Show. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.